Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very accomplished professional from Australia, Mr. Michael Crossland. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Michael is a speaker. He's an executive coach. He's a humanitarian, and he's a best-selling author. He shared the stage with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and with Richard Branson. He runs a school and an orphanage in Haiti. He was presented the Australia Day Ambassador Award, and he's got this for 8 consecutive years, and he's been recognized, felicitated, and awarded all over the world. Michael, you had such an amazing journey, but let me start by asking you that you have had an incredible battle with the dreaded C word, and I lost 2 of my very dear family members to cancer. Tell me about your journey.
Thank you. Yeah, it certainly has been a character building journey that has expanded now 38 years next month. I was diagnosed as an 11-month-old baby boy with an incurable cancer of the central nervous system called neuroblastoma stage 4. Doctors said there was no chance of survival to take me home and allow me to live the next few months with my family. But fortunate enough, my mum asked one question, and that question was, I don't want to know what the chances are of my son dying. I just want to know what the chances are of my son surviving. The doctor said I had a 96% death rate, and I'm so blessed and so grateful every single day that my mum chose to look at my life not being 96% empty, but she chose to look at my life being 4% full. I started chemotherapy on my first birthday. My chemo cycle was 9 days on, 3 days off, not for weeks, not for months, but for years. I was on that same cycle until my 4th birthday when a doctor came in and told my mum that the tumor had built a resistance to the treatment. It had now taken over half of my body. It was growing up into my spine. It was crushing my aorta. It was wrapping around my heart. I needed to go into surgery. I went into surgery, and 6 hours later, the doctors came out and said to my mum that they didn't get it all and that there was nothing that they could do. My dad and my 3 older sisters, they were flown from my hometown in Coffs Harbour down to the hospital in Sydney, where basically they were to come in and say goodbye. But the very next day, there was an American doctor. He was trialing an experimental drug on 25 patients around the world. He had 24 candidates. They all needed to be terminally ill. And they all needed to sign a waiver. So regardless of the after effects of the drug, we wouldn't be able to sue the company. And we really believe that outside of love, hope is one of the most powerful words in the English dictionary. And I think that even right now, the way the world is, if you can just have a little piece of hope in your heart, it's remarkable what you can overcome and achieve. And we said yes. We signed up to this drug with 24 other families. Within 24 hours of this drug starting, we were all transferred from the oncology ward to the burns unit. The after effects were so bad, we were burnt from head to toe. We were covered in blisters. They would wrap us up full of bandages, and they would lie us in bars full of ice, trying to prevent our brains from frying. But the long story short of it, 24 out of the 25 of us that were on that drug sadly passed away. And I say to people all around the world that I'm one of the lucky ones, and I never say I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm still alive. I say I'm one of the lucky ones because I wasn't my mum. I have learnt of recent times, as you know, and as we will share today, that it is far easier lying in the bed than standing next to it. And my journey's been a pretty wild one. I was on that trial drug for 18 months until one day they finally said that I could go home. They said I'd never go to school. I'd never play sport. I'd be a housebound baby. And if I reached my teenage years, it'll be a miracle. And I've been able to achieve some really cool things. I went to school. I graduated high school. I got a full-ride scholarship to live in America and play baseball. I got a chance to represent my country. I have had an amazing career in the corporate world, expanding over 10 years. And then 11 years ago, my health deteriorated rapidly. I got very unwell. I had bacterial meningitis. I got fluid on the brain. Then I had Bell's palsy down the right-hand side of my body. And that's when I decided to walk away from the corporate world and make a commitment and a devotion to making a global impact. And as you said in my introduction, that's when I opened my own orphanage and school. We were told we'd never be able to start a family. So we have 44 children that live in our orphanage. We have 270 kids at our school. And I've written a couple of books, and, you know, I've traveled the world and been very fortunate to share the stage with some really incredible people, and truly blessed and truly humbled that I've been able to not allow adversity to define me, but rather look at my adversity as the motivation to succeed.
What an incredible journey, Michael. I mean, you know, I'm just so full of admiration as I was hearing what you were sharing. But, you know, when I was reading about you, you also said that you spent nearly a quarter of your life in hospital. How did you keep yourself inspired and so positive, which you clearly are?
Yeah, I think that certainly comes back to my mum. You know, when we were finally allowed to go home, the doctors told her all this bad news, right? He's never going to do this. He's never going to do that. And my mum would come through the curtains, and I would say, what did the doctors say? And she would always say, oh, the doctors told me that everything was going to be okay. At the age of 12, when I had my first cardiac arrest, the doctor said I'd never play sport again. My mum come through the curtains. She told me everything's going to be okay. You know, so I think so often in life we strive for other people to believe in us. But, you know, I fortunately enough had a mum that believed in me, and I certainly believed in me as well. And I think for everybody, regardless of the depth of our darkness, I think the one thing that gets us up when the world tells us to stay down is to have a dream, to have a goal, to have a vision, to strive for something greater than others believe is possible for you. And, you know, one thing that I like to say is I don't work hard every day to prove other people wrong. I work really hard every day to prove myself right.
Well said. Well said. And, you know, clearly your mom's a very, very incredible woman who's given you so much sense of belief and confidence in yourself. Tell me a little bit about her, and you know, what is it that kept her going so with such incredible belief about her little son?
I think, as many would understand and attest who are listening today, who are parents, you would give your heart to save your child. Absolutely. You would never ever give up on them. And I think that I had a mother that had the unwavering determination and desire to see her son achieve his dreams and lead a fruitful life. And, you know, I look back on those times, and, you know, I said earlier that I was one of the lucky ones, not because I'm still alive, but because I wasn't my mum. My mum had to go to death counseling once a week for 2 hours to deal with what was going to happen to a little boy. Wow. You know, she had to inject a drug into a child that's killed every single person ever taken it. And I can only imagine what fear that must have instilled in her heart. But I also think that the courage that she has shown me as a child has allowed me to continue to fight now that I am a man. And I strive daily to not only make her proud, but just as important, I strive daily to get out of bed and serve the world and make the world a bit better place than what I found it. Because I don't want to just leave a legacy on this earth. I want to make sure that I get to live into my legacy whilst I'm still here. Amazing.
And I'm going to come to your book in a little while, but I sincerely hope you will write a book on your mom, because you know, the kind of woman she is, and the kind of role she's played in your life, and it's made you emotional just talking about her. So yeah, I can imagine the impact. But we'll come to that. Michael, you also shared a stage with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I remember meeting His Holiness in 1964 when he first came to India, and I have an autograph of His Holiness with me. Tell me about your experience, and what's the event that enabled you to share a stage with him?
You know, it's remarkable when you get out of bed and you have the desire not to earn, but rather to serve, to impact others. And it was an event many, many years ago where I was fortunate enough to be presenting. And I remember the event clearly, and they said to me that unfortunately we can't pay you for this event. And I was still trying to make a name for myself. I was still trying to get my brand out there, and I was really trying to make the biggest impact I could. And to be able to share the stage with someone, in my opinion, that doesn't walk, he glides. He floats through life. And, you know, I think that for a human being to just have the simple desire to just share kindness with the world, it's like it's like walking out of the coolness of the shadows to finally have an opportunity to embrace the warmth of the sunshine. And I just think that that's a beautiful way to live your life, and what a remarkable human being, what an impact he has made on the world. And I only hope that in some small way I can inspire and influence and impact others to look at their life a little differently as well.
Absolutely. And he's an amazing human being. So moving on, Michael, given the kind of things that you have done, despite the adversities that you have faced, who or what keeps inspiring you, in addition to your mom, of course?
Yeah, I really had the greatest miracle of all in 2017, when we'd been told my entire life that we would never be able to start a family. And, in 2011, to go to Haiti after the earthquake hit, where it killed 316,000 people, left millions of people homeless, and for me to get a chance to start my own family over there with 44 orphan children, to be able to see those kids thrive through great suffering and great adversity, to lead and live a remarkable life was such inspiration for me. But in 2017, we announced to the world that that we were fortunate enough, after 5 years of IVF, we were going to have a baby. And we were due to have a baby the end of February of 2018. But on the 8th of December 2017, my wife was nearly 30 weeks pregnant. She went into labor.
Okay.
And we were at great risk of losing our child. We went into labor, and 4 days later, my wife gave birth to a beautiful little boy named Lachlan James. He weighed less than 2 pounds. He was very, very unwell, and we were told that we should prepare his funeral. He had a horrible illness called sepsis, a blood disease, and we were basically prepared to say goodbye to this sweet little boy. And I remember standing over his little cot in a hospital one day, and I looked up into the sky, and I just said, God, take my house, take my career, take everything that I've ever owned, but please don't take my little boy. I realized at that time in my life, why is it that we begin to prioritize things when we're in the days of our lives, as opposed to prioritizing things when life is great? And I'm so blessed and so fortunate to still have our sweet little boy here now, and he's 4.5 years of age, and we welcomed another little miracle into our life last year. A little girl, Summer Grace, was born in January, and that is my inspiration now. That is my strength. That is, I hold the dearest in my world. And for a long time, I never could really look into the future, because the saying that I live my life by is that my head needs to be where my body's at. I think too often we are fearful of what might be tomorrow. We're regretful of what could have been yesterday. We forget to focus on what is right now. So with my health and my ongoing challenges, being diagnosed a few years ago, things were looking really challenging. And now I don't want to just make it to the end of the year. I don't want to just leave a legacy. I want to be there when my son plays his first soccer game. God willing, I want to be there to walk my beautiful daughter down the aisle when she gets married. I have real dreams and real goals, and I've been able to prioritize what's truly important. And it's not about how big the house is. It's about how big the heart is, and to be able to serve others and make an impact on my 2 beautiful children and my gorgeous wife. I am so privileged and so blessed to do what I do every day.
Fantastic. And you have all my prayers and good wishes for the health of you, your children, and your entire family. And I'm sure all our viewers and listeners will convey all the positives to you and your family for such an amazing journey you've had so far. Moving on, Michael, let me ask you an interesting question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? Because you seem to have done it all.
It's funny. I live by this motto that we must give without remembering, and we must receive without forgetting. I think in the world we live in today, we give without forgetting and receive without remembering. So I think if we can get that equation right, we really start to live the way that we are intended to live. And what I used to do a lot is I would pay for people's fuel, petrol, gas. I would go and pay for my petrol, and then I would pay for the Bowser 7 and then whatever number it was. And then I would wait for somebody to go in, and then they would go to pay. The person behind the counter would say, no, that person over there in that car paid. They would turn to me. They would say, thank you so much. And then I would feel great and I'd drive off. But then I realized the only real reason why I was paying for that person's fuel is because I wanted to be thanked. There was actually a return on investment that I was striving for and wanting to gain. And I realized that that's not the reason why we should give. It should be just out of the wholeness and the goodness of our heart to want to make an impact in other people's lives. And so just the other day, I flipped the script a little, and I paid for my fuel, and I paid for somebody else's fuel, and I drove off. And, it sort of took me a while to let it register, but then I realized that it felt even greater. And it's funny, there are two types of people in the world. There are pessimists and optimists, or victims and navigators, however you want to categorize them. And I'm sure the pessimists are like, but what if the guy that was behind the counter just took your money rather than paying for that person's fuel? I think, well, maybe the person behind the counter needed the money more than I did. And I just, it was a really cool experience for me to be able to do that. And I really challenge everybody, all our listeners. It's not so much about paying for something. It's not about a financial service to others, but it's just about, anonymous giving to anonymous is a remarkable way to serve. And I challenge everybody to do that every day. Find a way where you can serve somebody else without them knowing, without them thanking you. And I promise you, the dopamine, the serotonin hit that you're going to experience, the joy that you're going to feel in your heart is far greater than someone coming up and saying, thank you for doing what you do.
Wonderful. So one more question before I move to your book. In a life so well lived, does Michael have any regrets?
There's been plenty of things that I've done in my life where I wish I hadn't.
Okay.
But I don't think that I would categorize them as regrets, because I think through great loss is when we find great learnings and great lessons. 2007, 2008, my mum and dad separated, and the small amount of money she had from the settlement, I invested all in a high-risk share portfolio. That was about 6-7 weeks before the GFC hit, and unfortunately, I lost all of my mum's money. Wow. I was ashamed of the man that I'd become, and I broke what she had left emotionally. I put caravan park, and I was really ashamed of the man that I'd become, because I was so driven by ego and arrogance and power and privileges and possessions. And now, from that moment, it was a spiral to eventually hit rock bottom. And I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to hit rock bottom, because it gave me great clarity. I realized in the darkest days of my life, I could still breathe. And I think whilst ever we can breathe, we can get clarity, we can get purpose, we can get conviction on why we were here. I love that saying, the two greatest days in someone's life is the day they are born and the day they discover why they are born. Correct. And in that dark moment, I discovered why I was born. And, it took me until 2016 when speaking started to explode. I was traveling all around the world, 186 flights, 22 different countries, millions of people watching my stuff online, which was just overwhelming. But I was finally in a position to be able to give back. And in 2016, I got a chance to put a pink ribbon on a new door to a new home for my beautiful mum. And for me, that was one of the greatest days of my life, to give back to that one woman who sacrificed so much of her life for me. And I realized that day that it is far greater to give than to receive.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. So, Michael, now I'm going to move to the last segment of our conversation, and that's about your book. Yes. Tell me about your book, and also let me know, or show me your book if you have it here.
Yes, it was sitting on the swing over here, so I thought I'd pull it out for you.
Wonderful. Everything will be okay. So this, I'm assuming, is available on Amazon and other platforms.
Yes, it is. It's actually the best place to buy it is from my website because we don't take any profits from this book. The reason why I wrote this book was in 2016 when I was diagnosed again with cancer, and they told me that I wouldn't make it to the end of the year. So I wrote this book because I wanted to make sure that I could take care of my mum and take care of my wife long after I was gone.
Yes.
But I got through surgery, and from that day onwards, I made a commitment to never take a cent from it. And we've been able to donate hundreds of $1,000s from all different charities from all around the world. And I'm so grateful for this book that it's been able to help inspire people to look at life differently, obviously to learn all about my story. But more importantly than that, you know, there's a lot of tools and a lot of principles that I have to live my life by, not just to survive, but to thrive in life. And to be able to have them all documented so that, you know, it can really help people through their darkest hours is a great honor and a great privilege for me to be able to hold this close to my heart. And I really believe it. You know, my mum said everything will be okay when I was told I'd never go to school or play sport. She told me everything will be okay when I had my first heart attack. But I finally got to return the favor to her a few years ago when they told me that I wouldn't make it to the end of the year. And she said to me, "What did the doctor say?" And I said, "Oh, everything will be okay." And then when my little boy was really unwell, and the doctor said he wouldn't make the end of the week, my wife said to me, "What did the doctor say?" And I bit my tongue and I told her that everything will be okay. And it's turned out just beautifully. So that's the reason why the title of the book is what it is. And, you know, I'm incredibly proud to be able to, you know, put pen to paper and to express my heart in written form to hopefully serve other people, to allow them to lead and live a better life.
Well, I'm going to ask all our viewers and listeners to go out and check it out on your website, as well as on Amazon, if it's available there, and then take your call. I will certainly go and place an order for myself, because after this amazing conversation, I'd love to get to know you better, Michael. But my last question to you, and this is for the many, many people who will be listening to our conversation. What are 3 lessons that you would like our viewers and listeners to take away? And I know my conversation with you is full of lessons, but I'd like you to talk about 3 that you'd like our viewers and listeners to take away.
All right. The first one for me is that it's not the adversity in your life that defines you. It's how you deal with your adversity that allows you to live a remarkable life. I don't doubt that everybody listening today has a story. You all have pain. You all have some sort of suffering, but it is not the depth of the darkness that determines your quality of life. It is how you look at it. It is how you deal with it. And it's how you respond to those situations. So that is definitely my first one. The second one is, you know, someone said to me one day, and it's very aligned with that same quote, is that, Michael, you've been dealt with some really rough cards in your life. I remember saying back to them, whilst ever I'm being dealt cards, that means I'm still in the game. And whilst ever I'm still in the game, it's about how I play those cards. So to everybody listening, I challenge you all, don't spend the rest of your life comparing your cards to other people. Be grateful that you still have cards. Be grateful that you're still in the game, and play those cards as effective as you possibly can. And probably the last one for me is probably one of the greatest lessons for me. And it is, through great darkness, that is our discovery moment. We do not discover how unfair our life is, but rather we discover how powerful we have been created. Everybody listening has been created more powerful than we could possibly ever begin to imagine. And the more that we dig deep into our souls and the more that we dig deep into our hearts, we begin to discover the incredibly untapped strength that we all have deep inside. And it's through darkness that we find it, so that we can shine so brightly. So I challenge you all to delve deep in your time of pain, to be able to come out the other side and shine brighter than what you ever have.
Wonderful. Wow, what a conversation. And on that note of everything will be okay, Michael, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your incredible journey and about your amazing mother, who seems to have shaped you. Of course, you've had your own role in shaping yourself, but she seems to have shaped you into such an incredibly positive human being. I mean, you know, I'm going to go back and listen to our conversation several times, because there are so many little things that you have spoken about from the time of a 4% survival possibility to so many different times that you've gone through adversity and you come out stronger and stronger every time. Thank you for talking to me about your book. And as I mentioned, we will all go and look for your book. I will certainly order my copy for it. And whenever I'm in Australia, I'll come and get it signed by you also. But thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
My pleasure. Bless you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.